It's a real pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for opening this event, and to IISD for hosting us, and to the beautiful Canadian Pavilion. In fact, I promised the minister, and you are the witness when we had the meeting, that I would make a visit, and I haven't done it yet, but apparently there is some very brilliant exhibit on the other side, so you should all take a visit, as will I after this event. Look, GDP is something we grew up with. We learned what it was. It was sort of a thing by which we measured how wealthy we were, and we all thought that it was like the ruler, 30 centimeters is 30 centimeters. And we assumed that as countries came out on a scale, that it worked, and that it was a reflection of wealth and well-being and all these things that we want to strive for in societies. In fact, the scientific measure of GDP is the total monetary and market value of all the finished goods and services produced in a country within a certain period of time. Services and market value. So if I build a coal plant and I do a lot of CO2 emissions and whatever else into the atmosphere, I have in fact created wealth. And I have enhanced my country's GDP. If I fish the oceans empty and have a great quarterly profit, I have in fact enhanced my country's GDP. If I cut the proverbial forest empty and produce a lot of timber, I have in fact created GDP. And if I move a lot of money from one bank to another in a transaction, I have in fact enhance the GDP. And any child, of course, knows that that is not so. I didn't create wealth, I didn't create jobs, I didn't create opportunities. Maybe while we are cutting the forest down, we had some few jobs, but thereafter, then what? So in fact, any child knows that that is not wealth, that is not riches, that is not sustainability. In fact, many of these examples that I just mentioned are, in fact, very environmentally destructive. And others are simply just numbers moving from one account to another. So GDP as such doesn't work. And yet, the financial systems and ministries of finance and treasuries are really holding on to it. Holding on to it because it sort of is something that you can count and measure. But it's not good for sustainability. It's not good for equity. It's not good for the environment, and it is most certainly not good for intergenerational justice. It is these basic truths that many organizations have grappled with, including some that will be on the panel just after me. Because UNEP's Inclusive Wealth Index, that is our flagship response to the Beyond the GDP movement. The report Sorry, I don't know what that was, but anyway, the report highlights how inclusive wealth is a sophisticated yet streamlined measure for assessing national and global development and economic progress. And here's the thing. When we think about capital, we know from our economics class that there's something called manufactured capital, all the stock of stuff that we have produced. And then there's human capital, our health, how educated we are, the kind of skills we bring to the economy. And then there is natural capital. That beauty of nature, the one that feeds us, the one that sustains us, the one that enables the next generation to continue. And yet, as we look at these three things, two of them have gone up, yes. We have got more stuff, more infrastructure, more machinery, more stuff in the manufactured capital. And yes, we are getting ever smarter and more well-educated, and yes, our health is improving. But on the natural capital side, we are getting poorer. And when you take these three together, that's inclusive wealth. That's as simple as that. And that is what UNEP is putting out there. And when we know, and I'm sure Pushpam will speak to it, that this report, it looks from 1990 to 2019, our inclusive wealth has dropped. Our natural capital has dropped by 28%. But because we become more people, our per capita wealth natural capital has dropped by 50%. So clearly this function does not compute. It doesn't work. And that's part of why we're here at COP COP15 and why we were just at the other COP. So if we are going to fix this, then we need to understand that just counting the flow, what goes through the economy, is not good enough. And any child can tell you, and any adult too, if your grandmother worked hard and had a huge monthly income, and she spent it partying and taking cruises, the day she passes, she leaves nothing to her successor, her family. But if she saved her wealth, she leaves something. And we need to think about the stock, the stuff that stays. And therein lies natural capital as well. So we have issued this report, and this is being launched today, 163 countries, lots of measures. It also measures the SDGs and sees how we're doing on the nature-related SDGs. You will hear more about that. Now, others have really started, or not started, have actually also been working in this space, and I'd like to recognize the speakers who are on this panel, because I know that many of them have been working with this space. But what we do need to do, and as the Secretary General has emphasized, and in fact charged me with overseeing the conclusion of this work, is to find ways of measuring beyond GDP. Partha Dasgupta, Sir Partha Dasgupta, whom we just awarded the Champions of the Earth Award, this is the highest environmental honor of the United Nations, published at the request of Her Majesty's Treasury a report that dealt with the economics of biodiversity. And he speaks to biodiversity being an asset. We are here to negotiate around that asset. And we are here to understand that that asset is not infinite. And that is why the Inclusive Wealth Index matters, because it measures this in a sophisticated way, and it means that we can bring it right into the economies. That's what I wanted to say. Now I look forward to hearing from the panel. Thank you.